take your lanyard off?
I'll just do mine.
Do that, yeah.
Sorry, Greg. Yeah.
Shall I start as soon as it gets to past, or it's 29 minutes past here? To wait for past.
25 past.
29 past.
Oh, okay.
Just waiting, yeah. Okay, good evening everybody and welcome to this media conference to preview tomorrow's UEFA Euro 2020 Group D fixture between England and the Czech Republic. Before we commence, I have a very short statement to read out which was issued by the FA earlier this evening. It follows: as a precaution at this time and in consultation with Public Health England, Ben Chilwell and Mason Mount are isolating after interaction with Scotland player Billy Gilmour at Friday's match. The pair will be kept away from the rest of the England players and wider support team pending further discussions with PHE. The entire squad had lateral flow tests on Monday afternoon and all were again negative, as was the case with Sunday's UEFA pre-match PCR tests. We will continue to follow all COVID-19 protocols and the UEFA testing regime while remaining in close contact with PHE. Statement ends. As a result, Mason Mount was obviously due to join Gareth Southgate this evening, but unfortunately it wasn't logistically possible to find a replacement in time for 6:30 p.m. So we would offer our apologies for any inconvenience caused by that. So we'll start now with questions for Gareth, and we'll shortly get underway with Simon Peach of the Press Association.
Hi, Gareth. Just wanted to know what the situation is from your end. Will the two players, will they be unavailable for you tomorrow?
Well, we don't know at the moment, Simon. There's obviously got to be quite a doubt, but there's still a lot of discussions and investigations going on behind the scenes. So they're at the moment, as Andy just said, they're isolating, and we just have to find out over the next sort of 12 hours or so.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Next, go James Robson of The Standard.
Hi, Gareth. I know you've said already that Harry Kane will be starting tomorrow. I just wonder, is there any point where you would drop him for a game, or is he undroppable as your captain, as the best goal scorer in the team? Does that make him undroppable regardless?
Well, I think the only thing that's relevant is what I've said already this week, his importance to the team. He's been our best player, our most influential player, our most important player for a long period of time. And of course there's been moments where the likes of Raheem have probably had periods where he's been critical for our success as well in terms of the goal scoring. But Harry has consistently been our top goal scorer. His record, since we've been in charge is phenomenal, and he's a hugely important figure for us.
Thanks, James. Okay, a reminder to raise your hands as and when you do have a question. We'll next go to Rob Harris of AP.
Hi, Gareth. Good luck for tomorrow. Is there any sense, do you think, to discover from the Scotland team how their bubble might have been breached with this infection, in terms of anything that you might want to change around the England team going forward to prevent anything like that happening? And also, we heard about the talk you gave to the players, just highlighting how not every team always wins in the group stage. Some don't get any wins. Was that important for you to try to just calm things a bit?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the COVID regulations, I think every team is trying to apply those as vigorously as they can, and we've been living with that for, in a football sense, internationally the last 10 months or so. So we're doing all we can on that front. In terms of the messaging to the players, yeah, I mean, I think there are going to be some teams in this tournament who win all 3 of their group matches, but there will only be a few of those, and the objective has been to qualify. I think it was important that the players understood, firstly, a lot of them now know what a unique game England against Scotland is. No matter what they read about it, no matter what they've heard about it, until you play in one or you're involved in one, you don't really appreciate how unique it is. And they've come through that. It wasn't as good a performance with the ball as we would have hoped, but we still had 60% of the game, and we were in control for the majority of it. We just weren't able to break them down. So we've talked about that. We've talked about what we would need to do differently against them or against that type of system in the future. But we play a totally different team, and a very good team tomorrow night in the Czech Republic that we've got huge respect for. The coach has done a fantastic job there. Very dangerous team. And we've concentrated on preparing for that next challenge.
Thanks, Rob. Next we'll go to Carrie Brown of beIN Sports. Kerry, I think you might be on mute. We can't hear you. If not, we'll jump across to Scott Wilson of the Northern Echo, who's just coming in now.
Hi, Gareth. Gareth, just on the testing front, can I ask whether you said that it's been said that the players have obviously had tests today, lateral flow tests that they've passed. Will they need to have other tests between now and the game? And also, are you able to say have any of the players been vaccinated? And if so, was that a consideration before the tournament, getting them vaccinated, or have they kind of had to fall in line with the rest of the country in that?
Well, in terms of the testing, we had PCR tests, so the mandatory tests yesterday for the pre-game, and we've just followed that up today because of the situation that's emerged with Scotland. Just as a sort of belt and braces, really, to make sure that we're okay for people to travel together and eat together. In terms of the vaccination, I think you need to go back to my suggestions in March around that, where I was fairly firmly shouted down for daring to suggest anything of the sort. So I did propose it, but I, of course, at that time also said I totally understood where we stood in the pecking order for vaccinations, and it's more important that the clinically vulnerable and everybody else received those first. So I felt we were getting to a point where that would have been helpful. But in actual fact, vaccinations wouldn't stop you catching the virus. So it wouldn't necessarily avert this sort of situation, in fairness.
Thanks, Scott. Next we'll go to Arilis Old-Sada from VG Norway.
Hi, Gareth. I've been seeing in international coverage and spoken to a lot of international press people who are quite puzzled with how quickly Harry Kane has went from Golden Boot winner and one of the best strikers in Europe the whole season to this massive criticism and scrutiny that he's been under after 2 games. What's your view on the pace of the shift in how you talk about a striker like that?
I think it's the world of a big player, Throughout the time I've been England manager, I must have answered these sorts of questions about Harry on 3 or 4 different periods of time, and inevitably he's come through those periods and scored important goals for us and played exceptionally well. So it's a bit of a repetitive cycle. The big players have big focus, have a lot more attention, and their world is far more complicated than a lot of other players who can sort of go under that radar of pressure and intensity. And so I've got a huge understanding of how that is for Harry, a huge understanding of having played with big personalities, big players, how their world is different, and hopefully that helps me to manage him and to get the best out of him, which I think over a long period of time we have done.
And secondly, what's the place of Jadon Sancho in your plans, and why hasn't he been playing until now?
Well, we just have so many good attacking players. So Raheem, Phil Foden, in terms of wide players or players that can play in those areas and come inside, we have Raheem, we have Phil Foden, we have Jack Grealish, we have Marcus Rashford, we have Bukayo Saka, and we have Jadon, and they're all very good players. So if you weren't asking me about Jadon, you'd be asking me about one of the others. That's the nature of it.
Thanks, Errol. We'll go next to James Ollie of ESPN.
Hello, Gareth. You mentioned your comments about the vaccine earlier back in March. I just wondered, how far did that conversation actually go? Did it end with sort of a formal request to government that was rejected, or what actually happened there?
I wasn't involved in any formal conversations. I just made an observation that I thought, given the tournament, given that we were asking professional sports people to go into these sorts of events and travel and go back home to their families, that there would be a point where it would probably be, that they were at greater risk of catching the virus than others. But look, that ship sailed, and as I said, even if we had the vaccine, I'm old enough, I've had both vaccines now, but I know that I'm told you can still catch it, the different variants, it's just less dangerous. The reality is, moving forward, I don't think we'll be in a situation where a positive test rules you out, because I think we'll be living with it like we've lived with flu. But we're not at that point, and of course across the rest of Europe and the rest of the world, the situation is different in terms of numbers of people that are vaccinated and the dangers of it. So we have to accept we're in the situation we are, and we're abiding by all of the regulations, and at the moment that's why the two boys are having to isolate until we have more information and confirmation of where we stand.
And just one on the game, if I can. Gary Neville was talking about how he thought fatigue might have been a factor the other night against Scotland. I wondered whether you thought that was the case, and if so, whether you need to freshen your team up, maybe make one or two changes.
No, I think we had a tactical problem to break Scotland down, that we couldn't get the overloads in wide areas as easily as we had done in previous matches, and that's great credit to Scotland. We've talked that through with the team. I think the majority of players are in good physical shape. We have got players that we haven't started that have missed training or have had injuries, and so that's part of the reason for some of those guys not having started games. But the team that started were in good physical shape, and I've got no concerns about them.
Thanks, James. Next we'll go to Alex Howell of BBC Sport.
Hi, Gareth. Just wanted to know how disruptive the isolation could be and how you're managing it. Have you had to say to players you may start, and how late you'll have to make the call about when you could probably bring Mason in or not?
Well, we had worked with the players this morning on the training pitch, so of course then you find out as you finish that this is the situation. So I can't say it isn't disruptive, of course. We don't really know at this point whether they might be okay for tomorrow or they could be out for 10 days. So there's a lot of unknowns, frankly, at this moment in time.
So does that mean, do you have to have conversation with players who potentially weren't going to be involved to say, get ready, you could be starting?
Well, that's always the case. I mean, although we worked on the training pitch, we hadn't confirmed the team. We put some players in and moved them around, and so we hadn't confirmed the team yet, and we'll wait until the morning when we're really clear on the final situation on the two boys as to where we stand, really.
Thanks, Alex. Next we'll go to Charlotte Harper from The Athletic. There you go, Charlotte.
Cheers. I was just wondering if you can talk through why it was just Mount and Chilwell that needed to self-isolate rather than anyone who came into contact with Billy Gilmour.
Yeah, I don't know all of the factors behind that, but it clearly it's nothing to do with being on the pitch. So that's why there's no issue around teams training, for example. You know, going back to when Premier League restarted, training was shown to be and matches were shown to be a situation where there weren't contacts for long enough for that to be a risk. So, yeah, as I say, we're just waiting to hear more information really at this moment in time.
And if I can just pick your brains really on the process, is it Public Health England that approaches you, or do the England team say these are the close contacts and you advise them? Or who, if you understand, who moves first and provides which information?
Yeah, I don't have any idea, frankly, because, yeah, look, I don't want to cause a drama for Scotland, but if you're all in the dressing room together, where does everything stand? So it's yeah, I don't know is the honest answer to that. Our medical people are dealing with all of this. I'm being updated as regularly as we can be, which is every hour or so. There's a little bit more information, and we have to accept whatever the situation is and adapt to it. That's the world we're all living in across every family and across every sport and every business.
Thanks, Charlotte. Next we go to David Freeler, the Scottish Sun.
Hi Gareth, how you doing?
Hi there.
Obviously your own plans have been disrupted and Steve Clarke's plans have been disrupted on the eve of one of Scotland's biggest games for 25 years. Do you have sympathy or empathy for Steve, given what's going on and what you're also going through? Because there's a lot of uncertainty in Scotland too.
Absolutely. You know, I think, I mean, his plans were disrupted before the tournament. Ours have been as well, with late report of players and but then, you know, Spain had a similar situation. They've ended up drawing their 2 games. Denmark have obviously had a tragic situation. So, you know, this is tournaments. You have to adapt. You have to respond. It's why the depth of the squad is so important. It's why calmness around what's going on at any given time is really critical, I think. And that's how we've responded. We don't have all the information, so we're going to take our time to see exactly where we stand in the morning. And I guess it will be the same for Steve. I'm sure he's dealing with it in the same way.
And would you hope for Scotland and for England that with no more negative tests, that will be the end, in the sense of people following regulations, but there'll be no more players ruled out?
So I didn't hear the first part. The first bit of
Do you just hope for Scotland's sake and for your own sake that with everybody's tested negative in your own camp and the Scotland camp as well, that would hopefully be the end in terms of anybody else having to miss out?
Yeah, but we know that these things can appear 4 or 5 days down the line. So that's what we've been living with all year in a football sense. Every time we're tested, you're trying to do everything right across the camp. We've had nothing all year, but we know a lot of that has been good practice, but some of that has been good fortune, frankly. And there's just so many touch points of interactions that being in the bubbles as they've been has limited. But yeah, we're dealing with something that is you know, very, very difficult to control entirely, and I think we've all accepted that and understood that for the entire season.
Thanks, David. Next we'll go to Jerry Cox, Haters.
Hi, Gareth. You okay?
Good, Jerry. You?
Yeah, good. It was a year ago yesterday that football returned after the first lockdown, and obviously we're still having these issues and this level of disruption. Do you think we now have to accept that for the foreseeable future, football players, coaches, fans, everyone really has to accept that these things are going to be part and parcel of the game?
I think coaches have accepted it. It's obviously a massive disappointment for players to miss any matches, but we are in the same situation as everybody else in the country, and other people their working lives have been affected, their ability to earn money. So, you know, and of course, in a more serious sense, you know, the deaths that we've had and the casualties that we've had. So, you know, we've of course, at this moment in time, ours is a high-profile situation. It's not ideal, but in context, it's one we have to adapt and adjust to.
Thanks, Jerry. And next we'll go to Theo Squires, the Liverpool Echo.
Hi, Gareth. Obviously, if Mason is unavailable to play, you will need to make one change in midfield. I know you've mentioned that you're not worried about fatigue in the squad, but considering you've had Harry Maguire and Jordan Henderson, who have been carrying these injuries, how would you feel about them going into this game? Would they be in a position to start, or is it one we still got to tread carefully with them?
Well, slightly different situations given the length of time they've missed, but both are training very well, and both will be involved tomorrow. So we're happy with their progress. They've already, without being on the pitch, had a massive impact around the training sessions, around the squad. So I couldn't be happier with the way our playing group and the senior players in particular, the influence they've had and the impact that they've had. But of course they want to get on the pitch, and we're hoping that they can play a big part in this tournament still for us.
And going back to Harry Kane, obviously you got Dominic Calvert-Lewin there as a alternative to him. If he's having another quiet game against Czech Republic, how do you feel about throwing Calvert-Lewin on? I know he got his chance as a late sub against Croatia, but you've turned to Marcus Rashford before him in the last 2 games. He's had a good season himself. He's scored a lot of goals. Is he someone you could see leading this line for England if Kane continues to not be at his best?
Well, let me separate that question. Harry, I'm sure, is going to be playing well for us, and is going to have a big impact tomorrow. So I'm not worried about that. Are we pleased to have Dominic in our squad? Yeah, absolutely. He's a very good centre forward, and he had a big impact for us in the autumn. So it's good that we've got him and Marcus, who can play as 9s in the team. But I think they understand in terms of their challenge with Harry, and obviously Marcus can play wide as well. But they understand who our best number 9 is, and the scoring pedigree and the importance to the team of Harry's status and his role for us.
Thanks, Theo. Okay, we have no further hands raised, so we'll conclude the media conference at this point. Thanks for joining us this evening.